showing you a document, ask you to review that, look up when you're finished.
Okay. Okay.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, it's
What do you recognize that to be?
sorry. Karen Reed's phone call logs.
And that's specifically from January 28th and January 29th, is that correct?
Yes, it starts the 28th at 12:33 to, I'm sorry, the 29th at 12:33 to 3:19 p.m. on the 29th.
And just for ease of reference, does it sort of go in descending order as far as the earlier calls are on the last page and then the more recent calls are on the first page?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to introduce the minutes and exhibit. May we approach, please?
Okay. Yes.
Showing you another document, sir. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is Karen Reed and Kerry Roberts' call log.
And that's an extraction report that you created from the defendant's phone, is that correct?
Keep your voice up, Mr. Riley.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, the answer is no.
Sorry. Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
Okay.
No objection.
It's 6:34.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another document, sir. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is the chats from John O'Keefe and Chris Albert.
And again, that's an extraction report that you created from Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. No objection.
Mr. Riley, you really do need to keep your voice up.
I'm sorry.
It's 6:35.
And may I approach? Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you another document, sir. I ask you to look at that. Look up when you're finished.
Yes.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, this is Karen Reed's, the full chat report of everyone from the 29th on. So,
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm on the seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibit. We have no objection.
Okay. It's 6:36.
sorry, may I have the last one? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
So returning to you what's now been marked as Exhibit 636. Your Honor, with the court's permission, may I publish a portion of this to the jury?
Yes.
And sir, I'm going to direct your attention to the exhibit before you that's now been marked as Exhibit 636. And Ms. Gilman, if I could, I'm sorry, Trooper Garino and Ms. Gilman, if I could direct your attention to page 3. And do you have that before you, sir?
Yes, I do.
And on page 3, who is that a conversation with?
Laura Sullivan?
And that conversation essentially continues from page 3 to page 6, is that correct?
Yes, it does.
And so I'm going to ask you, similar to what I asked you the other day, if you could read from that conversation in its entirety, indicating who's speaking, content of what's being said, and the date and time associated with that message.
Yes. All right. First message from Laura Sullivan at 12:45 p.m. on January 29th, 2022. Karen, it's Laura. Please call me. Karen says, "Hi, Laura," at 1:07 p.m. Karen then says, "John passed away," 1:07 p.m. Laura, "Karen, I'm shaking. I'm so sorry." At 1:07, Karen says, "We found him outside in the snow at 5 a.m., 1:07 p.m. Laura, "I can't stop crying," 1:07 p.m. again. Karen, "Thank you," 1:07. And Laura finally says, "Why was he out there?" 1:07 p.m. Oh, sorry. Karen replies, "He left the party we were at. I don't know what time. I didn't even go in. I went to bed." That's at 1:08 p.m. Laura says, "Oh my God," 1:08. Karen, my heart breaks for everyone at 1:09 p.m.
Thank you, sir. So in those text messages to Ms. Sullivan in the afternoon of the 29th, she indicates to Ms. Sullivan that they located Mr. O'Keefe around 5 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to page 28 through 29 of those messages in the exhibit before you. In page 28 through 29, who was that a conversation with?
This is Karen Reed and John O'Keefe.
And these are conversations from the early...
I'm having trouble. Yes, hold on.
These conversations on page 28 through 29 of this exhibit occur in the early morning hours of January 29th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you could, sir, again, please read as far as who's speaking, what they're saying, and what date and time these are being sent.
Yes. So, Karen Reed to John O'Keefe at 12:55 a.m. on the 29th. "I'm going home." Followed by, "See you later." At 1:02 a.m., she texts John again saying, "Your kids are cucking alone." And at 1:04 a.m., she says, "I'm back in Mansfield. The kids are home alone."
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach this to retreat?
Yes.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you two documents. And Mr. Officer, we can put the lights on. You recognize each of those documents, sir?
Yes, one is Karen Reed call log report. Just want to confirm which one this is. Yeah. For John O'Keefe, and then John O'Keefe's full call log report on looks like the 29th.
Now, sir, if I could direct your attention to the defendant, Ms. Reed's call log report, and specifically, if I could draw your attention to what's been, they're enumerated as far as certain box numbers, correct? 1 through whatever it goes on the last page.
Yes.
If I could direct your attention to boxes 113 and 114.
Okay.
See those entries, sir?
Yes.
Now, as far as the time related to box 113 and 114, what are the timestamps associated with that?
1/29/2022 at 12:36 a.m. 41 seconds, and then another one at 12:36 and 10 seconds a.m. on the 29th.
And is there any indication within that report as far as whether or not those calls are answered, those calls are missed, those calls are rejected? What's listed?
It says answered.
And we'll get to this a little bit more in a moment, but with regard to that 12:36 time, from your review of both the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is there a voicemail that the defendant left Mr. O'Keefe at that time frame?
There was a voicemail at 12:37 a.m. These ones here, it looks like they're 3 seconds and 5 seconds long.
And they're listed as answered, is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention over to Mr. O'Keefe's call report. And specifically, I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to what's been labeled as box number 134 and then 134 with the 1 in parentheses following that.
Okay?
And do you see those entries, sir?
Yes.
And what is the date and time associated with those entries in Mr. O'Keefe's records?
His records shows number 134 is 12:36, 9 seconds on the 29th, and then 134 with the 1 in the parentheses, 12:36 and 9 seconds as well. But call duration 0 seconds.
And as far as any indication on those calls, as far as whether they're answered, they're missed, they're rejected, or what are they listed as?
There's nothing. Also 133 is the same call, and that one says missed, and it's at the same timestamp of 12:36 and 9 seconds.
So the same call around the same time frame shows up in Mr. O'Keefe's report as missed and shows up in the defendant's report as answered, correct?
That is correct.
And that is around the time that the defendant is calling the victim repeatedly and leaving voicemails on Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach just to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes. Excuse me.
Now, Trooper Guarino, you conducted an analysis of both the defendant's phone and Mr. O'Keefe's phone, correct?
That is correct.
And from your analysis of that phone, were you able to determine approximately how many calls occurred from the defendant's phone to Mr. O'Keefe's phone from the time period shortly after 12:30 a.m. To the time period shortly after 6 a.m.?
There was over 50. I think it was 53 or 55. But
And any of those calls from your review of those records indicate any sort of conversation as far as duration, as far as being labeled as answered, anything to that effect?
that Mr. O'Keefe actually picked up the phone and spoke to Ms. Reed?
Yes.
No.
Now, with regard to those phone calls from the defendant to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if anything, did you find from Mr. O'Keefe's phone in relation to voicemails left by the defendant?
There were 8 voicemails on Mr. O'Keefe's phone from the 29th till the phone was discovered. All from Ms. Reed, no one else.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you with this, sir. You recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
It's the John O'Keefe voicemails from Karen Reed on his phone.
From that period that we were just speaking about on January 29th?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll move to cease and introduce in the minutes of the next exhibit. We have no objection.
Okay. It's at 6:37.
Now, sir, from your review of the defendant's phone, before we get to those, from your review of the defendant's phone, what, if anything, were you able to observe or ascertain that the defendant's phone did at approximately 12:36 a.m.?
So by looking at the timeline in the phone, we were able to see that Miss Reed's phone auto-connected to John O'Keefe's Wi-Fi at his house at 12:36 a.m. We know this because it's a password-protected access to the phone, so you would have to know the password to get into this Wi-Fi network.
And that would be the home at 1 Meadows Avenue, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if we could publish each of the 8 voicemails to the jury.
Okay. Are we going to hear which time each one is?
Yes, Your Honor. And Trooper Guarino, again, similar to the other messages, just for point of reference, the earliest of the voicemails is the last in the list, and the most recent is at the top of the list. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as far as this first voicemail, what time did this occur at?
12:37 a.m.
And with the court's permission, if I could play that for the jury.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if you could have the second message. Sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could pause right there, please. My apologies, Your Honor, I just wanted the siren to go by.
Oh, that's fine.
Before Ms. Gilman presses play again, Trooper Guarino, what time is the second message?
12:42.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. Now, Trooper Guarino, with reference to the third message, what time is that received?
12:59.
And again, when I say received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone, is that correct?
That's the timestamp of the voicemail in his phone, yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, with reference to that third message.
John, I'm here with your fucking kids. Nobody knows what the fuck you want, you fucking pervert.
Now, the fourth message, Trooper Guarino, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:02 a.m.
Ms. Gilman, if you could, when you're ready.
That was it.
So can we just turn the air conditioner off for just a second, please? So you just played it?
Yeah, Your Honor, there was no content. It was just like a 1 second long message.
And Trooper Guarino, with regard to the fifth message, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
37, 42, 59, 1:11 a.m. Excuse me.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Yeah, it's 1 in the morning. I'm with your fucking niece and nephew. You fucking pervert. You're a fucking pervert.
In the sixth message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
1:18 a.m.
Gentlemen, if you could.
John, I'm going home. I cannot babysit your niece. I need to go home. You are fucking using me right now. You're fucking another girl. He's sleeping next to me. You're a fucking loser. Fuck yourself.
The seventh message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
5:23 a.m.
Gentlemen, if you could.
John, we're dying.
The last and eighth message, sir, what time was that received by Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
6:08 a.m.
Ms. Gilman, if you could. Gentlemen, if you could pause there for 1 second, I'm sorry. With respect to this message received on Mr. O'Keefe's phone at 6:08 a.m., from your knowledge of the investigation, where was the defendant, who, if anyone, was with her or around her at the time of this message at 6:08 a.m.?
Jen McCabe, Kerry Roberts. During the message, you can hear someone on the phone with 911.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, if you could.
Yes, I just want to say very 12 years ago, yes, now, and then maybe a tax notice now. Yeah. Weird blanket. I don't see blanket, Terry. Yes, I need
Thank you, Ms. Cameron.
Can we turn the air conditioning back on? Thank you very much.
Now, Trooper Guarino, in addition to the 53 phone calls that you've testified about the defendant made to Mr. O'Keefe from that time frame following 12:30 a.m. to approximately just past 6 a.m., did you note any other calls to a contact listed within the defendant's phone as mom?
Yes.
And when were those calls placed?
I believe there's one at 1:10-ish in the morning. I forget the exact timestamp. There's also one at around 4:40 in the morning, and then at 4:42, right around 4 in the morning. Two of them, the first two weren't answered, and then the third phone call was answered.
Now, with respect to Ms. Reed's phone from that same time period, what, if any, phone calls did you observe to a contact listed in the defendant's phone as dad?
It's the same number. So when I looked at it in one report, it showed as dad, and then when I looked at it in Cellbrite, it came up as mom. So I don't know how it's attributing. Maybe she has it listed twice. I never looked at her actual phone, so this is what the extraction is showing me.